Hello, everyone, and welcome to our World Chess Championship Made Simple series. Today, I'm very excited because we have two amazing players with us. The first one, playing black in our game, is of course the world champion, Magnus Carlsen. And the guy playing white, who happens to be his challenger, is Jan Nepomniachtchi from Russia. They started today and they're playing in Dubai and they're playing for 2 million euros. So whoever will win first place will get 60% of the prize fund, and the loser will still get 40%, which is not so bad when we're talking about 2 million euros. Now, in our first game today, we had Magnus playing the black side of a Ruy Lopez. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to make it as simple as possible for you to understand, and which is not easy because these guys are playing at a very, very high level. So let's begin. We start off with king spot opening. So Jan is playing white. He's saying, give me the center. Black says, no, give me the center. White says, let's take your pawn. Black says, no, it's my pawn. White says, what if I take your knight and then take your pawn? And so they're both fighting over the crucial e5 squares, d4 squares. You know, if you play something like d6, I'm going to get the center completely. And usually there are two moves here. The first one is the Berlin variation with knight f6. And the second one, which has been popular for a very, very long time, is of course a6. In the game, we got into the a6 variation where black says, go ahead, take my knight, I don't mind. Because even if you do take my pawn, I am ready to take it back from you with my super fork. And so Jan says, I don't need to trade with you, I'll just go back. What's the big deal? And the knight says, can I have your pawn? White says, sure, but if you decide you want it, you be careful what you wish for. For example, knight comes here, there's d4, there's a rook e1, and it can get really unpleasant for that king. And I think that's called the closed Ruy Lopez, especially if they later on push b5 and push d5. So it's possible, it's playable, it's not the end of the world, but it is a little scary for that king. So in the actual game, Magnus says, you know what? Let's just develop. Let's just get my king out of there, and later I'll take your pawn. And Jan says, no, you won't. You're not taking my pawn. It's my pawn. Okay, finally, the bishop gets kicked back because he's annoying, and sometimes he can actually do some damage. All right, that's why he gets kicked back, and we finally castle. So far, we're following all the moves that all the good chess players play, the closed Ruy Lopez. At this point, C3 is very popular. Some people like to say hi to this pawn to open up that highway for the rook and get a pin going. Some people play H3, which is what happened in this game. D3, knight C3 is a way to play. Even A3 are moves just to hide the bishop. So there are a whole bunch of moves. Almost anything is playable here. But Jan said, you know what, let's just in case, let's make sure your bishop doesn't come here. Because, later on, I want to play C3, D4. But if I play C3 right away, let's say I just go for the center. Boom, boom. Then black has the annoying takes, and bishop g4. And they pin and they put pressure on that guy, and nobody likes that. So most people just avoid it and say no, which is what Ian did, saying no to the bishop, and we have a nice little hidey hole for the king later on, the nice fire escape. Now, in the actual game, Magnus says, you know what? Can I have your bishop, please? And that's a shocking move. I think Jan was surprised. Maybe Carlsen was surprised. No, I'm just kidding. Carlsen knew what he was doing. Carlsen actually wants the bishop pair because we love the bishop so much, we're even willing to give away pawns for them. He says, you want a pawn? Take a pawn. Be my guest. But if you want it, you'll have to pay me in the form of your bishop. And after you give up your bishop, my bishops will start firing. Because as you open the center and take my pawns, the center disappears, those pawns poof, and suddenly the center opens up with the queen coming in, with the bishops coming in, and with the king saying, whoa, 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 I didn't take this into account. I didn't bargain for this. Okay, so he doesn't really want to get checkmated, especially if the knight runs away, but he has no choice. He's losing the bishop no matter what. It's getting traded for the knight. And you can say, oh, but it's three ice cream for three ice cream. Nah, the bishop is a little bit better, especially in open positions. For that reason, He takes the pawn and tries to run away with it, saying that pawn will be great in some endgame someday. All right. After the trades, we get this position. Okay, the bishop is saying hi to the pawn, and we have to defend it. After he defends it, Mr. Magnus, the world champion, says, if only that bishop could see a little further. If only I could make the mountains disappear. Because right now I'm looking at the rock, and I don't like to eat rock. It's not very tasty. If only the rock could be exploded, and then my bishop will come to life, and your king will not come to life after my bishop gets to him. So for that reason, White kind of has to take. He has no choice because I am coming. Okay, you could try something like knight c3, but I'm not a big fan of this knight. If you play knight d2, your bishop will hate you forever. And even after knight c3, the best you're gonna do is take me someday. I can even push you, kick you to take, and then after take, my bishop still finds life. The mountain still disappears. So that doesn't change anything. All right. For that reason, he takes, and Magnus says, hey, I bet you don't see this coming, right? You're not going to see checkmate. Okay. They are actually very strong players. They're not going to miss mates in one. And of course, he offers a trade. The thing with this trade is we're under attack, right? This is not a joke. They're not kidding. They are attacking us. Our chimney is gone. If you go back, the bishop will come. Then these bishops are going to wreak havoc on your position. So nobody likes those. That's why most people just say, you know what? How about we go to an end game? How about you take me and I take you, and everyone's happy. Okay, and then we go to an end game, and at least I have an extra pawn for my troubles. Of course, in the game, Magnus says, you want to trade? Trade when I want it. Trade on my terms. If you want to trade, that's the price you pay. And so the king is getting ready for some pin. One day the pin may be annoying, he just gets ready for it. Like he wants to play, some developing move, but he's a little bit scared about all this stuff. And that's why king f1, just getting ready, and rook b8. This is a deep move. This is a world championly move, okay? Because basically what he's doing is just slowly creeping in and saying, maybe I'll get to a4, maybe I'll get to your b pawn, maybe I'll get the queen side going with c5, c4. One day your bishop will move and I'll be ready. The biggest idea is, of course, a4. Because after takes, this guy will be alone and very hard to protect. The bishop wants to move, but now he's having second thoughts. He's like, do I want to move? Am I sure about leaving the pawn? So that's the problem for white. Jan decides enough with the queens, gets rid of them. But even after getting rid of them, his life is not so simple. Because you play a normal move like knight c3, it looks normal, but double attack. Number one, number two, very hard to defend. You play something like rook e2, I'll just gobble and gobble. Okay, everything is falling, your pawns are all split. This is a nightmare for white. Okay, for that reason, he has to be very careful. I would say Jan was defending in this game. He was holding on. Carlsen was pushing with those bishops, and he didn't feel like he's down a pawn. Does it feel like he's down a pawn? It feels like he's up a pawn because his pieces are much better than white's. Okay, so for that reason, Jan has to be very careful. Jan just slowly takes out the bishop, and he has to play moves like that. He doesn't want to move the knight back, but he kind of has to because, in some cases the knight is hanging, we have to use the rook, and, rook will come here, and it's just unpleasant. All right, there are lines like knight c3, knight b4. When the knight runs away somewhere, right? First of all, I can chop him up. Second of all, I can say hi to c2. So even after you defend, there's this move. The knight has to run away, and if he wants to run there, rook takes, and that guy is pathetic on c1. All right, it's very hard to defend, and this rook was too tied up to the knight. That's why Jan said, fine, I'll just move back my knight so I don't worry about him anymore. But here come more problems. Magnus works in mysterious ways. He's like slowly sneaking in. He's saying, one day your bishop is gonna hate me because after this, You have to go protect it. One day c4 will come, and your bishop will regret it because I'll chop off the knight, and your bishop at the end of all that will hate me. That's a mysterious rook move for you. Okay. After knight c3, the knight does come to b4. It's kind of like an outpost. It's very hard to get rid of me there. Okay. And you have to go to passivity. You have to just stand there saying, fine, oh, baby should wear fine. He doesn't want to, but he has to. Okay, let's fast forward right now. So I want to fast forward to the critical moments that happen later on. After all these moves, we get the bishop trade. Finally, Magnus says, you can have my bishop. All right, you can have it. I know I wanted it a lot, but you can have it back so that your pawns are broken. At the price of the bishop, I'll destroy your pawn chain. And then in any endgame, good luck winning with your extra pawn, quote unquote. It doesn't feel so extra, does it? Feels like you're down a pawn because these guys will likely drop. Okay, for that reason, Jan has to defend very carefully and look after these guys over here. Even though he's up a pawn, his pawn structure is destroyed. First of all, we have to watch over a6, make sure no annoying guy will come for it. And later on, Black starts pinching at these pawns again. He's gonna be really, really annoying, and we have to say no. Okay, so chess stubbornness, say no to your opponent's plans. He wants to come here, we say no. And at the same time, you weaken the pawn. This pawn is weak, this pawn is weak. Your knight is barely holding on. So Jan was just holding on in this game, and just barely. Okay, the rook is saying, fine, I'll do the hard work. I'll look after the pawns. Maybe my friend will come and help me, checkmate you. And of course, Carlsen sees that from like a mile away, says, what checkmate? Where checkmate? I don't see no checkmates. And we try to trade. At this point, Jan is just defending. So he says, you know what? How about we trade? We go to an endgame with only rooks? No. He wants to keep the knight off because compare this guy to that guy. This is a beast of power. He's got everything here. He's looking everywhere. That guy is stuck in the washroom. And because of that, White has to be very careful to defend, has to attack that knight just to save this guy. Any other move, uh-oh, you lose the pawn. Okay. For that reason, the knight goes back to the shack all the way to e1. Has to, stay in the closet just to protect everything. Horrible, horrible, horrible knight. On the bright side, Black can't really do much because all the weaknesses are covered, all the pawns are covered. It's okay. The white rooks are actually half decent, so it's not so clear. All right, let's go finish this game because in the end, he gets to the critical point right over here. Okay, after all that, Magnus gets to b4. Okay, now the good thing for Magnus is it's hard for white to do much. Okay, the knight can't move, the rook is stuck, and the pawns need to make some decisions. If white is not careful, kaboom, the knight gets here and it's game over. I would say this is close to winning for black because this guy is falling, that guy will likely fall, everything will fall. All right. And if you take, I mean, same thing. Later on, you open my highway, you let my knight in, game over. Okay. He has to be very careful not to touch the pawn and leave it there. Okay. The king has to come in. And rook b8 is a very nice move because if you just ignore me, I will come and gobble everything up. I'll gobble one pawn, get over here, get your second ring, my second guy will come in, and then the pig is on the picnic table will scoop everything up. For that reason, white had to be very, very, very careful here. If you play something like rook b1, I think there was a move like rook b1 here. That's how you lose because your rook is tied down. My second rook will come. You're just stuck over here. Then I'll bring in my king. King comes to d6. My pawns will move up. Good luck defending those endgames because you're all stuck and passive. So Jan decides, you know what? I'll give you the pawn. I'm up a pawn anyways. You want it so bad, you can have it. But after you take it, I'll cover everything. The main thing is everything's covered. Okay, if you try to invade, and a lot of people would, there is a trick rook takes. And after you go here, I just go back. The point is, if you take my rook, I'm just up a knight. Okay, so you can't afford to get to b2. And if you can't go here, you have to retreat. After you run away like a chicken, I can first of all stop you, and second of all, trade you. I will trade for your rooks. Okay, my pawn will come here to stop your king, to close off the door, to barricade the pawns, and then my rooks will come in to trade everything. All right. At the end of the day, the rooks can always be traded on the b file, and the knight is finally alive. He's like Frankenstein. He made it out. Okay, once the dead knight becomes alive, it's all fine for white, and he can just repeat moves because if the black rook goes away, it turns out a6 is falling. And that's where they agreed to a draw by repeating moves back and forward. So a pretty decent start to our World Chess Championship, and it'll be interesting to see how it goes from here. Thanks for watching and looking forward to future rounds.